Welcome to the Wokelandia podcast, where we are exposing injustice and social justice. We're your hosts, the Backbone Brothers. I'm Caleb, and over at the beach. So he claims today, which I don't actually believe, is...
You know I am. I do love me some beach time. I'm Joseph. Welcome to the show. For those of you, for both of our viewers.
For both of podcast, them.
You are faithful.
Yes.
And we appreciate you. And we do the show for you. For you. Even when on vacation.
Even from the beach of Maine, which is probably a fake background, but he hasn't actually fessed up.
No, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
I just like to come, and I'm so committed to this broadcast that I take it on the road.
Even though you're in Maine, on the beach. I am indoors because it's freezing here. In Texas, there's ice all over the ground, so no going outside. Just sit inside for a podcast. Works out fine.
Texas is too cold for me, so
Yeah, so you went to Maine instead.
Yeah,
yeah. That's
well, look who's getting it better. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm saying it might be fake, but yeah, maybe.
All right.
There's a cool survey. I want to kick off with this. This is very interesting. Then it's going to lead into the
before you do that, we need to remind both of our viewers, because I only think one of them has bought our game so far, that the Wokelandia podcast, and it's kind of weird to me that we call this a podcast because all it's ever done is show up on YouTube yet, but we did think it might be a podcast someday, and maybe it will. But both of, go buy our game, because when both of you do, that's our whole job, is to convince both of our viewers
to buy
the game Wokelandia, which you can find on Amazon.
Or one viewer has said that he or she, I won't say gender because I don't want to.
A gender of non-specificity, of course.
Yes. He, she, they, it, them, there has bought them, but the other
has
them, there has not
bought the game. So that's the whole purpose for this podcast, is to get our other viewer to buy the game. So buy it.
And until you do it, the pain continues.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
So go out.
And when you buy it, then we can stop doing this.
And also click like and subscribe on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That too.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
So the survey.
Is that done? Okay, let's go to the survey.
All of the commercials are over.
Super interesting survey about the most liked and disliked. It's a YouGov survey. Specifically, do you have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of the following groups or organizations? And they're all religions. They're the major religions: Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, the big religions, and then maybe not all, but a lot of the denominations underneath, particularly Christian denominations, because those are the denominations that people know.
Are there not more Christian denominations? I guess I'm just not familiar with how everybody else operates. I mean, I know there are
Shia and oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's
we're doing really well in our Islam
studies. No, it's Sunni. Gosh, okay.
Sunni and Shia, yes. Those are the big two tribes. But I know that there are subgroups. Yes. I just don't know if there are as many as there are.
Well, we just don't have the religion in the United States as prominently. There are a lot apparently in Hinduism, but I don't know any of them. Yeah. Unlike the 1.5 that I knew in Islam, I don't know any in Hindu. But anyway, and neither does anybody else in America to speak of. Not enough to do a survey. So none of those were included in this survey. They're all Christian in spin-offs of Christianity, which you can kind of guess at, and we won't mention yet, but you can kind of guess at what they are. Some people would say they're Christian and some people would say they're not. It's maybe a debate for a different time. But anyway, so the question is, Republicans and Democrats, what do they think of these groups? What's the most popular? What's the least popular? I've looked at this pretty closely. I've got it in front of me. Joseph, you do not have it in front of you, so you can play the part of the audience. What do you think out of all the religions, for Republicans is the most popular, and which is for Democrats is the most popular? And I've got a few other follow-up questions before we say
are we talking like which denomination? I mean, because I would say on
the survey, just the top. I'm looking at the survey here. I'll show it in a few minutes so people can see what we're looking at. The very top of the survey. This one
I would say for Republicans, it's Christians.
Yeah, you're right.
Just
It's
generic,
generic Christians, not
generic
not any
Christianity.
subgroup. Just Christianity in general is the most popular with Republicans. That's true.
Now,
How about
not
for
knowing
Democrats?
this, I mean, is like agnostic, atheist, is that a category?
Yes,
That's
that's
on
also
this.
a category on this. Those are religions, even though they actually claim
Well,
the
yeah, they
difference
are,
of
but
those
I'm just
religions, they're
wondering
not religions. In the survey, they are considered to be.
how broad my options are.
Yeah.
For Democrats. Again, I have to think like the woke. Tolerance is always good.
Not all
So nothing
Democrats are
that's
woke though
judgmental.
either. So this is just people who vote Democrat.
Right. No, but I mean, it's more generally. I mean, what
Yeah.
is their most favorable? It's not Catholicism for sure. If that's I'm sure that's broken down into that.
That category does appear.
I mean, they're not going to have. I wouldn't say Democrats are generally disfavorable of Christianity. I'm sure there are some denominations they are, but I don't even know what else would be like. It's like some spiritual, but not religious category, because I think if there was, they would be very favorable of the spiritual, but not religious. Is that an option?
Kind of. Not exactly. No, that exact category, like we put in our game, which is a better category. No, that exact category doesn't appear, but there are some religions that actually kind of follow that, and they do appear.
Agnostic.
They're not well known.
Kind of.
So I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
There's actually two that are tied for number one.
There are two that are tied Democrats for number one.
The most popular.
I don't know how that's a hint exactly.
Well,
I mean, that's more information, but I don't feel like that's a hint at all. That does not give me any more information that would allow me to answer the question.
Okay, just guess it one. What's the most popular one? Or I'll just tell you.
I'll go with Christian.
Okay, you're right. That tied for the most popular among Democrats.
Okay, what did it tie with?
And that is an interesting question. What did it tie with? What religious category?
Some version of spiritual, not religious.
Yes,
seeking.
Yes, but also no.
Mysticism.
It happens to be the world's largest, second largest religion, depending on how you categorize it.
Islam?
No. Yeah.
Islam is not the world's second largest religion?
Well, depends on how you categorize it. Maybe.
Okay. Well, give us the punchline here.
It's Buddhism. Buddhism. Interesting. The religion of
Democrats like Buddhism.
Yeah, they tied for the most popular religion is Christianity and Buddhism together.
Did they ask the Democrats if they know what Buddhism is?
Yeah, I don't know. And no.
They just have, I mean, obviously not. They just have a favorable view of it.
Yep.
Because they see them as what? Vegetarians and peaceful people?
Yeah, probably peaceful, not very confrontational against them, particularly in politics. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But
they like Buddhism.
They like Buddhism. That was the least popular.
Tied with Christianity.
I want to come back to the least popular one in a second. That's an interesting one, which is the least popular for both
Mormons. For Democrats, it's got to be Mormons.
That's your guess. You want to just jump right to the
we can do it later. But when you say what's their, I think lefties loathe Mormons.
No, that is not the least popular. Although we will talk about Mormons too, because that's kind of an interesting one. But no, it's not. But back to the most popular. We know that there's two tied. What is the second, maybe the third, or the now number two place? That's interesting with both Republicans. Actually, Republicans, you would probably guess it, but Democrats, you might guess it too. What's the second most popular among Democrats? And the interestingly, I'll tell you that the second most popular one among Democrats happens to be one of the least popular among Republicans. It's
Islam.
It's one of the biggest spreads, period.
Islam.
No, it's not Islam. Although, no, in Islam, the spread isn't as big as you would think. It is a pretty big spread, actually.
Yeah.
But there's an overall negative view.
Okay, I don't know. Tell us.
It's agnostics.
Oh, well, yeah, that's kind of okay. That makes that's what I was thinking was kind of that spiritual but not religious.
That's a big spread. It's a plus 24 for Democrats and a negative 27 for Republicans.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's might be the biggest spread on this survey is the view of agnostics.
Is it bigger than whatever the spread is for Muslims?
Yes, because for Muslims, it's actually a negative for although it's more negative for Republicans and Democrats. Islam, it's a -5. It's a little more Democrats see Islam as negative, but it's a -42 for Republicans. So that's a 37 spread, and the agnostics is a 51 point.
But okay. And so most Democrats view agnostics favorably.
Yes, by quite a bit, plus 24. And -27 for Republicans. So big difference there, is least popular. And while we're on the, I should say Republicans is a plus 54 for Christianity, and it's a plus 29 for Democrats. So even that's a fairly sizable spread, not as big as some of these others.
Which one was that? What did you?
That's Christianity, the first one. And that's by far the most popular among Republicans.
I would think so.
Second place is plus 30, which is kind of the same thing. It's Protestantism. And then Catholicism is plus 29. So Protestantism and Catholicism are essentially tied for second, which I'm not sure how that's different than Christianity, but whatever. Somehow it broke out differently on this. So what do you think is we already talked about the biggest spreads. What do you think the smallest spread would be? Actually, but I want you to do that one next, because the next one leads into the least popular religion. What would be the least popular
in general?
Do Republicans first. It's not the same. They don't both have the same least popular religion.
I mean, how far do they go? I don't know. Scientology, is that like on there?
Scientology is on here.
And I would assume that is very unpopular amongst both groups.
Okay, we'll just go to that. That is the most unpopular with Democrats. Nice guess. It is even more unpopular among Republicans, but it's not the most unpopular among Republicans. It is
atheism?
The second least popular.
Is atheism the most unpopular amongst Republicans?
Nope. Atheism is fifth, actually, least popular.
It's like, I mean, do they go to
once you
Satanism?
hear yes.
Okay. Satanism.
Yeah. Satanism is a -70. Somehow they found some Republican
who likes Satanism. It's -70. But where are the Democrats on Satanism?
It's by far the least popular. Democrats also view Satan dimly, but not nearly as dimly. It's a big spread. It's a -32 for the Democrats and a -70.
So if it's -32, that means they're like 70-30 almost, a little less than 70-30. So a third of Democrats view Satanism favorably.
I guess.
Is that what that says?
Yeah, but
that's weird.
Scientology is -51
for Democrats.
And -55 for Republicans.
So they view Scientology as worse than Satanism.
Yeah, and that's interesting because there's so many.
Yeah,
it's such a celebrity thing, and there are a lot of celebrities.
And they still watch Tom Cruise's movies.
Yeah, well, so do I. Top Gun was a pretty good movie. The second one.
It was. It was a very
good
movie. Yeah.
I don't know. That's okay. Interesting.
Well, is there? What's the most? I mean, did you have a most surprising data point on this?
I think for me, Scientology was the fact that happens to be the smallest spread. Actually, no,
they're anti-vaxxers for one.
They are.
They're anti all pharmaceuticals. Basically, they're like anti the drug companies, which is, I mean, the left took a hard turn back toward the pharmaceutical companies during COVID. They were skeptical of big pharma prior to 2020, but 2020 and 2021 made them very pro big pharma and everything they produced. And maybe, I don't know how relevant that is, but yes, Scientologists are very anti pharmaceuticals.
Oh yeah, that's true. They are. I remember that now with
all of everybody being over prescribed. And frankly, that's a place where I'm kind of sympathetic to science. I'm not sympathetic to Scientology, but I agree with that particular position that we are making in prescribing way too many drugs. Yeah, we're over medicated. Yeah.
So that was an area of general agreement between Republicans and Democrats, was the high negatives Scientologists get. There's one
It's
other.
uniting America.
There's one other uniter, even more so than this. This is going to surprise you, I think. Which one has the smallest spread? There's a 1 point spread on this one, and it is a +4 for Republicans and a +3 for Democrats, and it's a denomination of Christianity.
A
Which one?
+4
For Republicans and a +3 for Democrats. So essentially, within the margin of error, I'm sure. Essentially, they
small, but
slight positive,
slightly
slight
positive. I mean,
for this
like
Christian denomination.
Lutherans or something. I mean, who hates Lutherans? They just kind
What
of
is Lutheran? Lutherans are bigger.
Methodists.
Actually, the Democrats are -4 on Lutherans, and
Oh,
the Republicans are a +14.
okay.
So
Well, yeah, I feel like it's got to be some mainline Protestant denomination.
it was a church just down the street from us, or a few miles down from us, where we grew up in Aberdeen. We knew the pastor and the
like
family.
the Open Bible. Is that a
Yeah,
denomination?
that's not a
That-
denomination.
That was the closest one, but
Yeah, a little past the Open Bible, heading toward
Calvary Chapel. No, they'll be negative. If the Democrats know what that is, they're going to be again.
Yeah, and that's the question. They might not know this denomination. You know it well,
Yeah.
and I know it well.
Assembly of God. No.
Yeah,
Really?
it is. That's it.
They're favorable to the Assembly of God.
Yeah,
That's because they don't know anything about it.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so too.
They got no idea.
They don't know that they're right-wing Bible thumpers at the Assemblies of God.
Charismatic ones at that.
And charismatic. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
know.
that was for me the most interesting, and actually it tied with the Episcopal Church. The Episcopalian was also,
and they couldn't
+4
be
+3.
couldn't be more different. The
No.
Episcopalians and the AG are tied, huh? Okay. Well,
Yeah. And I guess one other quick, let me show this screen here, but one other quick, really interesting one. The Wicca religion.
Wicca. Yes.
Yeah.
Witchcraft.
Yes.
Spells.
Essentially, although they claim they don't really
Witches.
do witchcraft, but yeah, they kind of do. So like,
What do you mean they claim they don't? Isn't that the whole point?
well, some claim it's not real witchcraft. It's just, I don't know. There's some debate on how to
Okay.
define witchcraft.
Okay.
What I'm trying to
Wicca.
say. Yeah. So Wicca is really negative for Republicans. It's a -31, but it's a +2 for Democrats. And interestingly,
+2 for Democrats.
they view that higher than they do Judaism
Uh-huh.
and higher than they do Pentecostals.
19 points higher than the Southern Baptists, I see.
Yeah, and the Southern Baptist is the other big spread.
By no surprise, they really don't like the Southern Baptists, which
Yeah,
you knew that was going to happen.
yeah, a lot.
You know what I think? Yeah. They don't like the Church of God in Christ, ACOG. That's a black denomination.
And I
So
don't
they
even know
probably
that
didn't know that because they would say they like it if they knew it was black. Right? I mean,
Yeah,
them's the
it's like-
rules.
yeah, you can't.
They just don't. Yeah, I mean, I think we're dealing with a lot of ignorance of what it is that
Yeah,
we're
I've never
actually
heard of
talking
this
about.
denomination. Like Assemblies of God, they don't know what that is. They're never been to it. But your larger religion, even I don't know, like Islam. Islam was very negative, as you can see there. Falun Gong. I wonder how many people actually know, or not Falun Gong.
Falun Gong,
Yeah,
no idea.
and that's the one
Do you know what that is?
yeah, they're the ones that are being persecuted in China. They're
Uyghurs?
no, that's Muslim. Falun Gong is
Yeah,
kind of
well, yeah, they
thing.
are okay. Well, there's a lot of people being persecuted in China, in fairness.
Yeah, I guess narrow it down, right?
So
Yeah. But that is
Okay.
one particular group that apparently they're on the outs with the communist leaders there, and so they are being persecuted by
yeah.
China. I mean, as a Christian, it's a false religion, but they should not be imprisoned for believing it like they are in China, because that's what that religion is. Anyway, so I
Well,
thought this was pretty interesting.
I mean, what do you take away from this? I mean, other than it's pretty clear to me that a lot of people express an opinion about religions they don't know anything about. Just about
Yeah, in fairness, they were probably just.
I mean,
asked.
but
Mormons on there
I
is
would say that
-35 and -16.
yeah, if there's
You're
a
right.
general trend here, it's
Mhm.
that Republicans view organized religion more, or certainly organized Christian religion more favorably than do Democrats. And that's not really a surprise, is it?
No. Yeah, that's what you would expect. Because I mean, they
That's what
like the religions that aren't here. Like Buddhism is not really in the United States, so that one doesn't bother them too much.
Yeah, but they like Hinduism, they like Buddhism, they like Unitarian Universalism, which is, of course,
that's kind of your spiritual, not religious idea.
Yeah, that's the all paths lead to heaven, or no paths lead to heaven, or you do whatever you want to do, kind of, and feel good about it. That's kind of, that to me, Unitarian Universalism is kind of the church of the left, I think, in a lot of ways, where there are no rules, follow your heart. And that's
right.
I think kind of the moral code of Unitarian Universalism.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that's we can talk about our last clip here, and I'll show this other thing too. But you want to introduce this kind of ties in.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the next story we're going to talk about is relevant to this, is how we view religion, because it's now been more than a week as we record this, but it's worth talking about still. Kamala Harris, our illustrious, our eloquent vice president of the United States.
It's Kamala Harris who was talking. It wasn't the
our illustrious and eloquent.
Not that
Kamala
one.
Harris. Caleb, be respectful. My goodness, she was giving a speech, as she is inclined to do sometimes when she's required to speak, and she was making, and this was, I mean, in context here is important, because this is right on the anniversary of Roe versus Wade. And this was a big year for the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, because this is 50 years past Roe. And as everyone will remember, Roe was just overturned last year. So 50 years after Roe had been decided was the first anniversary of Roe in which Roe was no more. Right. So those who love abortion are lamenting what has happened in the last year. She was at an abortion. She was at a rally talking about other things, but including that abortion. And in that context, she made a comment about the rights that we as Americans have, where they come from. Caleb, why don't you let Kamala Harris tell the rest of the story?
I'll go ahead and play it here for you.
A promise we made in the Declaration of Independence, that we are each endowed with the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay, wild cheering and applause. And because both of our listeners are students of American history and incredibly brilliant people, I think they will recognize.
Did it skip and miss some parts out of that?
Well, maybe, because she quoted the Declaration of Independence. And again, what she said is they are endowed with the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Now, Caleb, what's missing? What did the illustrious and eloquent Kamala Harris miss in her description of the Declaration of Independence?
Two things. She skipped who does the endowing of these rights. And it seems like there were three mentioned in a row, and she only said two.
She only said two of our rights. Why on earth would she omit one of our fundamental rights that were endowed by someone she does not mention?
I wonder if it's because it would have totally undercut the speech about
the whole pro-abortion speech, and so she felt awkward referring to the right to life. Perhaps. My 14-year-old. In moments like that,
when you get into that, you just skip that part, because that's going to be
my 14-year-old, in moments like that, she says "Ako taco." That's how the middle schoolers are referring to awkwardness these days.
Okay,
but just though we will, because much of what Kamala Harris says is kind of funny, just in a oratory sense, but it is very significant that she omits who our rights are endowed by. She said, we are endowed with the right. Now, why does it matter, Caleb, that we are endowed by our creator with the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Well, that's where it comes from. And actually, she says there's another sentence after this where she kind of says that we are given these, but she still doesn't mention where from. Let me play another 5 seconds here.
Go ahead.
Be clear. These rights were not bestowed upon us. They belong to us as Americans.
She's kind of
Well-
hinting at it, right?
Yeah, although they were bestowed, it just depends what you mean. If not bestowed by the government, it's that. If
Yeah.
that's what they were bestowed.
Although I don't know that she, I mean,
She doesn't believe that.
that's
though.
interesting. Why does it? I mean, because the whole reason this matters, and the reason the American experiment has been successful, and the reason why it was unusual is because governments up until that point, for the most part, said, we the ruling authority, we the oligarch, we the monarch, we the the dictator, we decide what is
The
right,
divine
what
right
is
of
wrong.
kings.
The divine
kings
right of kings.
are
We
given the
get
right
to
by
decide.
God to decide, not the people.
Yeah. We get to decide what you can do, what you cannot do, and you just get to deal with it. And if you disagree with us, I got a big man over there with a sword and he will come deal with you. Right? That was how government worked. And so the divine right of the king, and in many cases, it was almost like in a religious sense, like the king spoke for God, he was the final authority. And so the American concept that our rights don't come from a person, that they come from God, and therefore it is the responsibility of the government to protect the things that God gave to the individuals is really remarkable, because this is a, we hate binaries in Wokelandia, but this is a binary choice. If you believe you have rights, they have to be rooted in something. And either they come from our creator, which is what the American thesis is, or they come from your government. And creator rights. What are creator rights? If I build a shed in the back of my house, in my yard, and I decide I don't like the shed anymore, I can knock the shed down and nobody has a right to complain about it because I put it up in the first place. It's my shed. So it is with human rights. The person who creates them has the right to destroy them. If God created them, then only God has the right to take them away, and the government must recognize them. However, if government is the one who created the rights, who gave you the rights, then what does the government have? Of course, they have the creator rights to take them away as well.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if on that survey we just went through, government, of course, isn't on there. Government isn't a religion, or supposed to be, but I would argue that the left treats government as a religion, as a replacement for the church in the religion. I think that is what the left sees government as. So what would they, how popular would the government be in that case? I think not very popular.
Probably. No, very. I think, well, and here's the test.
I wonder how you would ask. Do you think, do you have a generally favorable or unfavorable view of government? I bet most Democrats even would say negative.
Would say they have a generally unfavorable view of government. I don't. That's it. I'm sure that question has been asked by Gallup. But to your point about government,
they want to give them a whole bunch more power and ability to take rights and decide what rights are and all that.
Yeah, but
even though I would think they'd be unfavorable.
To your point about government, about what functions as your religion, you know what your religion is based on who you turn to in moments of crisis. You know where your faith is. And we are now trained, even culturally, the moment there's a problem, help, Mr. Mayor, help, Mr. Governor, help, Mr. President, right? That's who we turn to in times of need. And that's why, for practical purposes, if not theological purposes, not everybody is worshiping at the altar of their government in a literal sense, but that is their instinct. That's where they go in times of need. That's why government is operationally the savior of, frankly, most people.
Yeah. Yeah. And you do see that constantly. I mean, that's a good point. I didn't expect to really get into that, but it definitely is. The government has a role to play, but the idea that the government is the savior of every bad situation that comes up, which I think that really is what most, I don't know about most, a lot of people think, that every tragedy, every hardship should rightly be solved, and even can possibly be solved by government, where a conservative will tend to say, no, government can't solve most of our problems. And a Christian conservative says, well, that's because of God. A Jewish conservative as well, and even Muslim conservatives. But the secular conservatives will just say, I just see that it doesn't work. The government isn't effectively doing this. And why would we keep using government when government keeps screwing things up and it isn't good at that kind of thing? Even a secular conservative would say it that way, I would think.
Well, yeah, but the reason they say, why do we keep doing this, even though it screws up? And I think the answer to that is based on your worldview, because there are no other places to turn. Everyone wants to look someplace for hope. And if your theology, if you do not believe that we are created at all, therefore we are not endowed by our creator with certain inalienable rights, then your worldview does not give you the ability to have hope in something beyond the world that we currently live in, which can only be saved. Again, secularism says we came from nothing. The great problems are systemic. The solution to the problems are political revolution, and our great hope is solving all of the problems through political revolution. That's the only thing that our heart can have hope in. Now, our theology is going to say, it's broken. It's not going to be fixed until Jesus comes back, but we have great hope in the world yet to come. And that's where our hope and our expectation and our joy is. So we have very modest expectations for what's going to happen here, right? That's a totally different way of looking at tragedy, at looking at political failure, at looking at government failure, right? We have a way to look at that and say, yeah, that's terrible, but it's going to get better. And I don't have to despair because of what I see. They don't have that mechanism. If you have ripped out, endowed by our creator out of the Declaration of Independence, and we're just endowed by some nameless, faceless entity being bureaucracy or whatever it is, that's why they have to go back. Even though they think government's terrible, they got nowhere else to turn. So they're going to keep going back to that well, even if that well is poisoned.
And it's interesting, the two rights she lists, I think, are really one and the same from that perspective, with the right to liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And really, you have the liberty to pursue happiness, whatever that may be in the moment for you, and achieving that. Of course, achieving happiness is also a right, which is not true. Achieving happiness is not a right, but pursuing it in your profession and in the way you want to live your life.
That's the difference between equity and equality.
Right. Achieving happiness, or just being able to pursue the things that you think God has given you to do, or that have come into your life to do, as long as you're not infringing rights. But our hope as Christians, like you said, David said, I think it was David in the Psalms anyway, I lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence, or from where does my help come from? And he answers it by saying, my help comes from the Lord. And that's how the Christian looks at the world, is that ultimately our hope comes from God. If you don't have that view, then you're going to look somewhere and saying, where's my help going to come from? Because it needs to come from something. And the next best thing is government. But there's a pretty big gap.
It's not the next best thing. It's the only thing. I mean, that's where I think it's coming from. It's that they just have no other options. Very few people are. What's Congress's approval rating, right? It's like single digits, maybe the teens.
Well, it's the only thing powerful enough to tell everybody else to start living the way you want them to live.
So we're not excited about what they're doing. We just got no place else to go. So we just keep going back. Keep going back. But the whole, I mean, and let's tie a bow on this because we're about out of time. But that whole survey and the way the left and the right just views religion in general. Why does the left like Unitarian Universalism and just kind of the laissez-faire religion that it is? Why do they like Buddhism? It's just karma, be good and things will work out. Don't be good and things may not work out, right? And just, don't eat animals and be at peace. Which are, they don't work, but that's those are the things that they are attracted to, and the
nice ideas,
the religion that actually has rules and truth and repentance and sin and justice and those things, that's really uncomfortable because it demands something of you. And based on those preferences, we see people living out very different lives.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We are out of time, but we'll be back again as soon as we can. I think this was a very interesting discussion.
You two come on back next time. We'll see you.
Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.